please check it out. This restoration progress reports, we do these every few years. This one covers 2020 to 2022. So it's basically a 3-year period since we have done this last. So if you want more details about anything I'm saying here, feel free to look through your reports. So just to give you a little bit of background, I know many of you know and love the Comprehensive Restoration Plan like I do, but if you haven't heard about it, it's our blueprint to restore, enhance, and protect the ecological characteristics of the Hudson-Raritan Estuary. It was developed in a partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers, Port Authority, Hudson River Foundation, and HEPS Restoration Work Group. It's meant for use by all agencies and organizations seeking to conduct restoration in the New York, New Jersey Harbor Estuary. So HEP and partners have agreed to all use this, and HEP signed on to start tracking progress in 2009, with the final report coming out from the Army Corps of Engineers in 2016. And that's what you can see, the little report on this, the cover on this slide here. So the plan defines 12 what we call our target ecosystem characteristics. If you hear me say TECs, that's what that is. And it outlines goals for each one of these TECs and also specific opportunities. So you can, hopefully what you can see in this little diagram, I know it's small for a lot of you, but I'll just list them real quick for anybody who can't see. So we have public access, wetlands, eelgrass beds, habitat for fish, crabs, and lobsters, oyster reefs, sediment contamination, acquisition, coastal and maritime forests, enclosed and confined waters, habitat for water birds, shorelines and shallows, and tributary connections. So before I get into the goals and the progress towards the goals, I want to just take a minute to address the opportunities from the Comprehensive Restoration Plan. So I want to highlight this restoration activity map. The Restoration Work Group over the past few years have spent a lot of time making sure that this data is up to date. And this map shows the opportunities for all of the sites. There's hundreds and hundreds of which you can see these blue polygons on the map here. And it also tracks all the restorations that have occurred. And it's all fully interactive on our website, and you can click on any of the polygons or any of the restoration sites and it'll bring up more information. You can also sort and filter the map by whatever target ecosystem characteristic you're interested in, and you can also look up individual sites. So I'm just going to jump straight to the kind of results, the progress results for the various TECs. The CRIP, the Comprehensive Restoration Plan, outlines separate goals for both 2020 and 2050. So I'm not going to focus too much on the 2020 goals because I did that last conference back in 2020 and that time has come and gone. But I will say that 7 of the 12 have satisfied the 2020 CRIP goal. And the other 4 are poised to do so if we keep on a similar rate of progress. As for the 2050 goals, you can see the progress here on this graph, hopefully. It goes from percent completion. So on the axis, you can see from 0 to 100. So our coastal forests are up at nearly 80% of our 2050 goals. So that's, our best TEC so far. Our oyster reefs are down at the bottom. That has a very ambitious goal I'll go into later. And then just want to mention that our shorelines and shallows TEC, we haven't quite figured out the methodology to how we're going to track progress towards our 2050 goal. So that's still to be determined. So for 4 of these, and that's coastal forests, habitat for water birds, public access, and tributary connections, we're doing pretty good to hit that 2050 goal if we keep progressing at the same rate we're progressing now. But for the rest of the text, which you can see outlined in this little bracket, we need to ramp up our rate of completing restorations. So I just want to give out a couple awards for the most improved. So this isn't the best, as you'll see but this is what I mean by that is the change in the rate of progress since we last reported out in 2019. So those go to oyster reefs and sediment contamination. So on oyster reefs, it has satisfied its 2020 goal. There's been more progress in the past 3 years than the previous decade combined. But the 2050 goal, as I mentioned, is very ambitious with the expectation of 2,000 acres of restoration. Sediment contamination, there was not a lot of progress to track at all prior to what's going on now, and that's in the Gowanus Superfund site. So that's completed one of its phases, and the completion of the Gowanus Superfund over the next few years will get this tech to its 2020 goal. But we're only at 4% completion to our 2050 goal on sediment contamination, but a lot of good progress. A couple other things you might be interested in that I want to report out on is where, who, and how much. So you can see from this little map in the corner that these are all the restoration projects that we have tracked over the past 3 years. So these are just from 2019 on, 2020 on rather. And you can see there's a nice kind of broad swath of projects throughout the lower estuary. For the what you'll see in the word cloud in the middle there, I just took the tracking table, looked at all of our partners, and put it into a word cloud there. So for some reason, the word cloud removed all the capitalizations, but you can kind of see that which kind of partners, we have a lot of great partners working on a lot of great projects, but you can see ones that are maybe doing a little bit more, a little bit less. And finally, we spent over 18 million on restoration from 2020 to 2022. And all of this is, within the midst of a global pandemic where implementation of restoration basically stopped for more than a year. So not too shabby. So a couple other themes I wanted to let you know that you'll see in the restoration report. First one is moving out of the pilot phase. So for many of the texts, there were 2020 goals that were about doing pilot projects, like do a project in this region, do a project in that region. And we really need to scale up these projects to increase connectivity and to make use of mutualistic restorations. So that particularly applies for eelgrass, shorelines and shallows, and habitat for fish, crabs, and lobsters. Another theme that you'll hear is protecting against sea level rise and climate change. Several of our texts are really on the front lines here, wetlands in particular. We're kind of running out of space for wetlands, and they're bearing the brunt of a lot of the sea level rise. And that also goes hand in hand with acquisition. We've lost several of our CRIP opportunity sites to coastal development. And we really need to preserve as much habitat as we can, even prior to getting around to restoring it. And then finally, as we're going to talk about a lot more later today, it's an incredible opportunity for funding restoration. And I want to highlight the Tributary Connections Subcommittee is especially committed to making sure that these opportunities don't pass up our region. So that's basically what I had to say. As I said, it's a kind of small glimpse of what you might find in the restoration progress report. Happy to answer any questions before I kind of move on to the next the next section of the talking about restoration. We still have many other things to come. But anybody have any questions in the room? Yes, I'm not sure we've shared the link yet, but it will be up by the end of today. Yeah.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rosanna Pedro-Nobre. I am the Water Quality Program Manager at the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Estuary Program and the Hudson River Foundation. And I'm here to share with you an effort to update the environmental monitoring plan, which will lay the foundation for the next State of the Estuary report and the action agenda, which will be kicking off soon. So before we dive into what we've been doing, I want to start with just kind of scoping you guys back to what is environmental monitoring and why it's important. right? So environmental monitoring can be described as a systematic sampling of air, water, soil, and biota in order to observe and study the environment. Environmental monitoring is critical for tackling and tracking the health of the estuary and the progress and effectiveness of management decisions and actions. And developing this plan really helps to coordinate those monitoring efforts, identify where data is accessible so we can better understand what's going on in the estuary, and also to help us understand where we have gaps. So working with HEP's many technical work groups, a number of you included, several committees and other partners across the Hudson Raritan Estuary. We're currently reviewing about 70 environmental indicators. This is an increase from 50 from our 2018 update. So there's a lot more indicators that you have all thrown at us of like, hey, we're monitoring for these things. It might be important. We might have enough information that we could assess how we're doing in terms of our management actions. And so we're working through organizing these indicators across our 5 goals, which are water quality, habitat and ecological health, public access and stewardship, port and maritime activities, and community engagement. And so as we begin to get ready to review these indicators and the analysis that we'll look to be completing as part of our State of the Estuary, we'll be reflecting on how best to identify these indicators that cross a number of goals, especially those that are critical for climate change and environmental justice analysis. And so to remind you all, the environmental monitoring plan does come into 3 tools. The first, which is available today, is the monitoring inventory and interactive map. The second is a digital companion, which we call the environmental monitoring story map. And really that enables users to understand the indicators that provide critical insight into answering some of our core questions. And then we also have a monitoring recommendations report that prioritizes monitoring programs, highlights where our critical gaps are, and suggests funding streams that could help support the continuation of new monitoring activities or existing monitoring activities to achieve our objectives that will then be outlined in our action agenda. And so where can you find this amazing tool? It is on our website. You're just going to go onto hudsonriver.org. You'll go onto the tab, you'll click on State of the Estuary, you'll scroll down Environmental Monitoring Plan. You can read the summary brochure from 2018, or you can just click on Learn More, and that will take you to all 3 tools. But the one that you want to play with is this one here, which is the map. And I'm going to see if I can give you like an actual live tutorial. Okay, does that work? Are you guys seeing the map? Map or just my presentation? Just the presentation. All right, let me stop it. And slideshow. Can you see that now? There you go. How about now? Yay! Oh, it functions. This is great. So this is the tool. We will be doing like a facelift to this once we figure out how we're going to display those indicators that do cross a number of our goals, and how we're going to highlight those climate change and environmental justice indicators. But basically, when you land onto this landing page, there is a pop-up window that opens up, which is this box here, tells you how to use the map. But really what I want you guys to focus in on is really how this functions, right? Because the idea of this is really to not host data, but to be an inventory or an index, right? Like a library index. You're going to go in, you're going to be interested in, maybe I just want to see all the water quality indicators that are happening. I can see them that are continuous. I can see the ones that are currently active, non-active. I can search by, I just want to look at pathogens, and this will give you the spatial scope of how much monitoring programs or monitoring sites are focusing in on pathogens. I could do the same with habitat. I can, let's X that out. So you could see habitat here is another one. And really what you'll be able to do is kind of hover over these points. If you click on it, there'll be more information about that monitoring program there, and you'll see kind of what indicators they're going to be focusing on, what's the program name, the program objective, and the most important part, a contact person if you're interested in learning more about that monitoring program, but more importantly, where to access the data for this monitoring program. I think one of the biggest challenges that we had identified really was that you couldn't access everyone's data because you didn't know where it lived, right? Some of us, especially in the water quality world, we put everything in the water quality portal for the most part, which is great, but that's not the case. And it's usually not available for every other indicator that we're interested in.